Welcome to The Explainer, where today we are diving deep into one of the sneakiest and most misunderstood threats on the web, DOM-based cross-site scripting. So let's start with a number, $20,000. Back in 2020, a security researcher pocketed this hefty bug bounty from one of the biggest names in tech. Yep, that's what Facebook paid out for just one vulnerability. And get this, it wasn't for some massive Hollywood-style server breach. No, it was for something much quieter, something that cleverly exploited the user's own browser and turned it against them. So what was this attack? You're looking at it right here. It's called DOM-based cross-site scripting, or DOM XSS, and that's exactly what we're going to demystify today. Here's our game plan. We'll cover what makes this a purely client-side threat. We'll explore the stage where it all happened. We'll trace the attack from source to sink, look at the real damage it can do, and then, most importantly, talk about how to stop it. All right, first up, to really get DOM XSS, you have to understand what sets it apart. It's all about location, location, location. The whole attack plays out right inside the victim's web browser. Think about that for a second. The malicious code, the payload, it never even has to touch the web server. That's what makes it so incredibly sneaky. This table really nails the key difference. With traditional XSS, you're trying to trick the server into sending bad code back to the browser. But with DOM XSS, the vulnerability is in the client-side code itself, the JavaScript. The server is just an innocent bystander, which means a lot of standard security tools are completely blind to this. Okay, so to understand the crime, you gotta know the crime scene. Let's talk about the stage where this all plays out, the DOM. So, what is the DOM? You can think of it as a live blueprint of a web page. It's what JavaScript uses to do all its cool dynamic tricks, like updating a live score or showing you new notifications, all without you having to hit the refresh button. Now let's get into the mechanics of the attack. Security pros have this great term for it called taint flow, and it really helps visualize what's happening. Taint flow is just a way of saying that bad or tainted data gets in through a source and flows to a dangerous sink. The best analogy is plumbing. An attacker poisons the water supply. That's the source. It flows through the pipes and comes out a dangerous faucet. That's the sink. So the source is the entry point. It's any place in the JavaScript that accepts data an attacker can get their hands on and manipulate. And these sources are hiding in plain sight. We're talking about totally normal parts of a URL, like the query string after the question mark or the fragment that comes after a hashtag. These everyday things can be hijacked and turned into an open door for an attacker. And if the source is the open door, the sink is where the trap is sprung. It's a function that is maybe a little too trusting. It takes whatever data it receives and just runs with it, no questions asked. So, you can see where this is going, right? When you take untrusted data from one of those sources we just saw and you feed it directly into one of these dangerous sinks, that's the moment you have a DOM XSS vulnerability. When you put it all together, the attack is actually brilliantly simple. An attacker creates a special link. They trick someone into clicking it. Then, the browser's own JavaScript reads the malicious part of the link, passes it to a dangerous function, and boom, the code executes right there in the victim's browser, totally bypassing the server. Okay, so a script runs in a browser. So what? Who cares? Well, you should. Let's talk about why this is such a huge deal. Once an attacker is running code in your browser, they can essentially become you on that website. They can steal your session cookies and take over your account. They can pop up a fake login form and grab your password. They can redirect you to malicious sites. Basically, anything you can do, they can now do. And here's the truly chilling part, which this quote sums up perfectly. Your standard security tools, like a web application firewall, are completely useless here. A WAF is watching traffic to the server, right? But the malicious payload never goes to the server. So as far as the WAF is concerned, everything looks perfectly normal. Okay, enough of the scary stuff. Let's talk about the most important part. How do we actually stop this from happening? Honestly, the single best fix is often the simplest. It comes down to choosing the right tool. Using a dangerous sink like inner HTML tells the browser, hey, what's in here might be code, so go ahead and execute it. But if you use a safe sink like text content, you're telling the browser, this is just text. No matter what, just display it as text. And just like that, the attack is completely diffused. Of course, the best defense is a layered one. First, always treat user input as hostile, sanitize it. Second, use those safe syncs we just talked about. Third, you can implement a content security policy, which is like a strict bouncer for your site that only lets approved scripts run. And finally, using modern frameworks like React or Angular is a huge help because they have many of these protections built right in. So, after all that, what is the one big thing you should remember from this explainer? It all comes down to this question. You might spend a fortune making sure your server is a fortress, but DOM XSS is the perfect reminder that your security doesn't end there. The code that's running in your user's browser is a critical part of your attack surface, and you need to protect it just as fiercely.